You're all at Turtle Lake Refuge, which is our in-town little cafe, community center, greenhouse. And then we also have a farm, 7 miles northwest of here. But my inspiration to go in this direction, I mean, honestly, it came from when I was 11. I think when I was 11, I grew up in Durango, so this is my home base, and I always knew that I fell in love with the land and the people really early on. I knew that this was where I was going to be. But when I was 11, I was floating on this air mattress on this lake, and my parents and brother and cousins all went back and had lunch in the picnic table area, and I kept paddling and then went way out of sight, and around the corner of these plants on the shore called me over, and the plants said, "You're home and you're going to live your life with us." And so I think from that moment I got this euphoric experience of, oh, this is home. And I just started following that calling. And so right after high school, I camped out for a summer by myself to eat all wild edible foods and just learn about the foods of the land. And I had a lot of books with me. I didn't know much yet. And I didn't have any human teachers, so it was just the books and the plants themselves. And I just immersed and started learning. And then in college, I got a degree in biology and did these independent studies where I could go to the woods and study the plants. And so Turtle Lake Refuge, which is our nonprofit, started by really just wanting to protect some land near Turtle Lake. And it was 60 acres for sale, and there was a big subdivision proposed that I thought was a terrible idea. And so I wanted to start raising awareness and money to protect this land. So I started doing these wild food, living food, locally grown food lunches off of a bicycle. And it's this 3-wheel bicycle outside. I have to get a picture of it.
Yeah.
But I did that for a year, twice a week, $5 a plate. We didn't raise $500,000, but we raised enough awareness that a neighbor actually bought the land and put it into conservation easement. And then we realized that, oh, this isn't just about protecting one piece of land, it was really protecting wildlands everywhere in the world. Because our mission for Turtle Lake Refuge is to celebrate the connection between personal health and wild lands. And the more that we take care of our wild lands, the more healthy we are, and the more we are healthy, the more we're going to take care of our wild lands. And so our mission goes into we're still serving these wild, locally grown living food lunches twice a week, every Turtle Tuesday and Frog Friday, from 11:11 to 2:22. And then we also grow these beautiful microgreens and get them into the public schools. So this was the very first local food that got into the school system in Durango, which was amazing because there was no local food in the schools. But because we can grow them year-round, we were able to get through this $5 million insurance policy that we didn't have, but we could serve it to the USDA in bulk, and that rid of whatever our liability. Anyway, so we found a little loophole that we could get it in, and now there's lots of more local foods in the school lunches, which is fabulous.
A person that's interested in connecting with wild foods themselves,
Yeah.
or looking to expand local foods in their public schools, and what advice you would give to someone that feels a calling like you did,
Yeah.
and wants to protect the land or educate or create delicious food that they're proud of.
Great. Yeah. It's kind of amazing right now because there are so many wild foods on our planet next to humans, even in cities and towns, that are invaluable for human health and sustainability. One of the biggest ones are just the wild weeds, which are everywhere. Like the weeds grow on every continent next to humans, and so they just belong on planet Earth. But it's funny how we can get in these really strange mindsets as humans of war on weeds, and they're invasive, and they don't belong, and they're noxious. All these degrading, very non-tolerant terms. And we don't want to have discrimination for humans, animals, plants, insects, nobody. Everybody belongs, 100%, and they're essential in this moment, in this time, in this place. So my advice for anyone who's passionate about care for the earth and wanting to connect more with their own health, especially that self-resiliency of the wild foods, which to me is the highest high source of vitality within our food. Like when we can buy good organic food, we can even grow great organic food, but when we go directly to these wild seeds that are so integrated and adapted to this region and eat that, when we are what we eat, it's incredible that wisdom that comes through our bodies, and it changes how we think. And when we're eating the wild foods from our land, we become the best caretakers of a place, not only in our intention, but in knowing how. And it doesn't come from outside, it comes from the inside out by eating the teacher into our body, and then it starts to direct us. So that's my biggest advice, is just go and start eating the wild foods around you. And it could just be pine needles, spruce needles, fir needles from the evergreen trees. It could be the dandelions and the wild grasses, and there's so many amazing wild plants, of course. But my passion also got sparked because I lived next door to the herbicide sprayer in the county, and they had this huge stinky shed, like 30 by 40 shed, where they stored 10 different herbicides and these 10,000 gallon tanks, and semi-trucks would come and fill up the tanks, and at the end of the season they'd spray all this out right next to my organic farm. So I lived with that for 20 years actually, and I made multiple attempts. And, would you go away? I don't want you in my backyard, but really I don't want you in anyone's backyard. And that motivated me to help start with other great people the organic parks in town. So we have now 8 organic parks in town where, so this has been a journey. So an organic park is a playground or a ball field or some city park that is not sprayed with chemical fertilizers and chemical herbicides.
Wow.
And so right now, or before, in 2010, all the parks in Durango were sprayed with your typical weed and feed, which my neighbors would spray. And most countries, most states, cities across the world still do that as the mainstream practice. It's like that war on weeds. And it's a really backwards practice, because the more you disturb the land with herbicides, the more nature gives you the weeds to help remediate the land. Because the weeds are the actual beings who know how to break up compact soil and remineralize, and I mean, they're essential for our bee pollinating health too, because as humans develop and build roads and concrete buildings, and we're just cutting down all the native wild plants by paving it over. So the weeds can grow in the little sidewalk cracks, and they can grow in these little disturbed areas, and they create incredible forage for the bees, like the thistle and the mustard greens and all these amazing.
So they're kind of the pioneers in restoring the land.
They are. Wow. They're the pioneers. They're actually the heroes of the 21st century.
Wow.
For the earth.
Yeah.
And then in addition, they're the best food and medicine for humanity. And it's free. And they're waste, so that was the motivation actually for creating the cafe, was let's take these, quote, problem things and turn them into the greatest resource, which is our health and our food. So we make dandelion sorbet, and we
had some of that. Really good.
We integrate all the weeds. We make a thistle root chai tea that sells out.
Yes, I heard that too. All those so good.
Yeah,
At the farmer's market.
yeah. So part of that is just the education that these are not the problem. These are actually
The solution.
the hero. Yeah, a lot of people want to help, and yes, there's been a lot of pushback. And with the organic parks, it was 10 years ago where we talked to the city and the mayor and said, hey, we want one organic park, just a trial.
Yeah.
And it took a while, but eventually they said yes, and they gave us a park. And Turtle Lake Refuge volunteered our services to put compost tea down and have weed harvesting parties, and we managed it. And then the next year, it was a success, so we said, hey, we want 2. And the city was kind enough to give us 2.
Yes.
So we got 2, and then the city took over the managing of the parks too. But then the next year we said, hey, we want more, we want 3, and they said no.
Oh, they drew the line.
You people have a choice, 2 out of 50 or whatever. And that wasn't good enough for us. So we wrote a city ordinance, and we waited until 2012, which was when marijuana was going to go onto ballot as well. We knew all the weedy people were going to come out and vote yes. So we knew it was going to pass. But we wrote this ordinance really strict, like 100% organic overnight, all of the parks. We just did it the way we wanted it to happen.
Right.
And that was way too big of a leap for the city to take on. So there was huge pushback. and front page articles and city council meetings, and it was heated, and I was not popular at all. But at one point, the mayor asked us to take it off the ballot, and we were thinking about it. Should we just push it through? Should we? And we actually decided to take it off the ballot because they were willing to work with us, and so we ended up together rewriting, and we created an organic lands resolution, which got passed unanimously. And then the next year, a third of the parks shifted to organic. So it was kind of like one step back, 2 steps forward, and we've been doing that dance for until now. But what's interesting is that 2 things happened. Turtle Lake Refuge started doing a project called Be Happy Lands, and we do organic weed mitigation now. So that's one of our little projects, and we actually go to people's lands and we manually remove and overseed with native seeds, whatever people want. We put compost tea on, and we make a weed remedy, which is it's like a biodynamic homeopathy combination.
And that's something homeowners can hire you to come and mitigate their lands.
Exactly.
Because all those little lands add up to big amounts of lands, right?
And we've been doing some very big lands.
Wow.
Like 500 acres north of town, this homeowners, this Electra Lake subdivision. And then the town of Telluride hired us to do their whole valley floor, 600 acres. And then the town of Over hired us to do their whole town, and now Mancus. And now, this year, Durango hired us.
Finally, right?
To manage the one organic park. So this summer, we did one organic park, but they just asked us to see if we would consider managing all the organic parks. So I made up a little bid and sent it off, and wait and see.
That is so exciting. I hope that works out for you, and what a way for it to come full circle, and I really like how you took action, because sometimes when you introduce a new idea, it can seem overwhelming to the government agencies. And so when you step in as a citizen and actually show the action that you want done, I think is a very powerful message, and especially for young people to actually come in, do some rewarding work, and then see the fruits of their labor. And then, you set that example and you said, yeah, this is what we did, city, so you spell it all out for them, you make it as easy as possible.
Yeah.
And then they're more willing and able to digest what you're trying to move forward. And it's also a really good story about persevering, and just trying to see who it is you're working with and what they can handle and what really is the best way. So it sounds like you've really used a lot of your dynamic social skills as well, working with your volunteers and with the city and the mayor. So it's really a beautiful thing that I feel like a lot of young people could see as a role model, that really one person, if they have something they're passionate about and they believe in and they're willing to be patient, they can see fruits of their labor, and they can bring people with them on that journey. So it's a really beautiful thing you're doing, and really a big blessing to just be able to sit with you here today and just be inspired by it. It's wonderful, and I'm sure it'll translate to lots of other people being inspired as well.
Yeah, and it was with conflict. And
sure.
It was, and there was times when, but now instead of being in conflict with, let's say some of the people in power who just don't see the same view, if we stick it out, if you just stay steady, it's almost like water torture treatment. You don't go away.
You can erode it a little bit at a time.
Exactly. Now we're on a task force together, like the 2 people who just, butted heads and did not see eye to eye. Now we're sort of in alignment or in collaboration more.
Collaboration.
And it may not be that we agree on everything, but at least we're finding that collaborative. But it took 10 years.
Yeah.
So it takes time.